Welcome, everybody, to the 100 Year Lifestyle Podcast. We are transforming health and longevity worldwide so that you and your loved ones can live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And wow, great guest I have today. Good friend. I feel like we've done this before, Jay.
We have, yes.
Dr. Jay Komarek from the great state of where are you living now? Remind me.
South Carolina, yeah.
South Carolina, world-class pioneer leader in animal chiropractic care, just doing an amazing job. We're going to talk about your pets today. We're going to talk about your horses, your dogs, your cats, maybe your birds too, and squirrels. I don't know how far we're going to get, Jay, and I've just made some of those things up. But, there's an innate intelligence in all of these magnificent creatures, isn't there?
There is, it's our number one principle of the 33 principles. That there's universal intelligence and all matter giving to it rise, giving to it all of its properties and actions. It's a very, very powerful principle that we live by and we trust.
And it works every time because it just does, and because it's there, and it's a principle. And so, listen, animal chiropractic is my favorite part about animal chiropractic is number one, it works like working with earthlings, people, but also is that animals have not been polluted. They don't have brains that have been polluted by all kinds of media, drug ads, attacks because of our success in the world, our grassroots movement that has been going on since 1895, and they just line up. And when you see animals line up, you know that it's really a magnificent thing that you're doing. So talk about how you got started in this, and then we'll get into some great stories.
Yeah, I got started watching a horse get adjusted when I was younger. And I was in love with horses and as a kid, and my father was a chiropractor, and his two brothers were chiropractors, and I had just decided early on. I was maybe 8 or 9, somewhere in there. I started thinking about it, and my father would say, you'd make a wonderful chiropractor. His brother was, you'd make a wonderful chiropractor, and I it was just my love of animals. And it's an amazing thing when you set an intention. This is just a very, very powerful law of life. If you set an intention, one of the very first new patients I had was a veterinarian, and I wound up adjusting her horse without having a lot of skill, no skill sets. I didn't have any anatomy of the horse other than I went and got a spine from a rendering plant, a real live spine. And I studied a little bit, and then I went and adjusted her horse. And after her fussing with that horse for 3 years, the horse recovered after one correction. And then they hired me
Recovered
to.
from what? What did it recover from?
The horse had a lameness. This was a what we call a paint quarter horse who had taken a fall on a icy slope and then was off and lame for 3 years and had a pelvic distortion, or a pelvic subluxation. And so I made a correction the best I could at the time, and the horse walked off and recovered. And they then hired me to work in their animal hospital. And I worked for them for quite a few years. So that's how, it's amazing. Set the intention and let the universe provide, which it does. And I didn't actively seek that out. It just came to me.
Yeah, it's you have always been a man of intention in your adult life, like I have seen you in action, and to know that you had those roots and you nourished them and followed it. A lot of people don't follow those intentions. They let them slide, they get a thought flash, they don't really give it the intention it deserves, and they pray for it to come back. It's like, what was that? And it always comes back if it's meant to be and authentic.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where I read it. I don't know if it was BJ that said that. I think it was. I may have heard it from some speaker, but was that the moment the thought came in, or the impulse came in, or the thought flash came in, to act. And I aligned with that early on. That if I was asked to do something and it hit the right spot inside me, I took action. And I never regretted that. I did regret it when I ignored it, and but when I listened and took action, it always universe came around in all of its magnificent ways and provided.
Beautiful. It's
Yeah.
listen, it's been a principle that so many of us have lived by, and so many of us could learn from. And so, in following this intention and working with lots of animals, and talk to us about some of the things, because people spend, obviously, we love our animals, we love our pets, dogs, cats, um, horses, like you brought up. Talk about some of the different types of cases that you see or have seen that there was either no hope, or people have been all kinds of different places. Because, I mean, we say chiropractic first in a lot of ways for healing purposes, get the body to heal itself in this world of all kinds of testing that gets done, hormonal testing. And, how could you test anything for accuracy if you have a neurologically imbalanced system? So, talk to us about some of the things that you have seen in the past that maybe blew your mind, or just were just really excited about the results.
Well, the film of Life Adjusted came about because of a horse that had been severely beaten and with a baseball bat. And
Wow.
so, the shock, you can imagine the trauma to the nervous system, let alone busting up the spine. And that horse living like that for quite a while, nobody could get near it. And it's a wonderful story because I was practicing in, the Denver area, and they had called to ask me to get out there, but for me to leave, I didn't quite understand the extent of the trauma. But my assistant of many, many years, Helene, booked a flight without telling me and put me on a plane to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, where I then drove to Ashland, Oregon to meet this horse and then made a correction. And you get to watch the beauty that's inside all of us. It's inside all most behavioral issues in horses and in dogs many times is a result of a nervous system that is, I refer to it as being jacked, but technically we say you're subluxated, where there's interference. And it's one thing to talk about it. You and I, it rolls off our tongue because we're used to the languaging, the neurology, the orthopedics, biomechanics. But to a person, it's hard for them to grasp. But when they see it, and you see a horse or a dog or any animal get adjusted, cats, nasty cats, adjusting a very nasty cat and having them being totally tranquil after an adjustment, it's so impressive because they're witnessing something that they may not grasp neurologically or energetically. And so my intent with animals early on, way back in the late 70s and 80s, was I knew that it would be a game changer for chiropractic. I realized that, oh, this is a way to communicate chiropractic without, without having to promote, so to speak, that people could watch something and learn something. And that was my intent early on. And sure enough, everything came my way that way as far as notoriety, so to speak, just because it was animals. And there's people have such a love for animals. And when you do something wonderful for them, it relieves them of suffering. People all of a sudden are paying attention.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And, going back to something I said a little bit earlier about all the lies that people have been told about health and healing, and chiropractic and the body's ability to heal itself, and you need these drugs and all these different things. And you see these animals where they just read your energy. They know that your intention is good. They feel the love. They trust you. They trust the practitioner, the chiropractor who's doing that, and they let go. And you got to see some of these films if you're watching this. And I want you to give some direction to some of these places where people can watch this, Jay, if you don't mind, where you
Sure.
literally see when the doctor of chiropractic pulls up, even before they get out of the car, they recognize the car. And the doctor, the chiropractor, opens the door. They get out of the car. They walk over to the corral, and the horses start lining up. Alpha first, and everybody in the correct order. They line up and they wait their turn to get their adjustment by the chiropractor. That is amazing to me.
Yes, yeah. What's amazing is that it happens because of a very clear intent. that the chiropractor has a clear intent that intelligence goes from above down, inside out, which is audio. And the medic, in well-meaning, does everything from the outside in, below up, or oibu, which is, in chiropractic, we're saying, look, the intelligence resides in the animal. It resides in you. It resides in the child. We don't have to go get it. It's there. It needs to be liberated and the obstruction removed. And, D.D. Palmer, this amazing gift that he gave us by this discovery. I always think about the fact that here's a guy who knew anatomy very well. He was an anatomist and studied the spine, who then has the courage to go and thrust on someone's spine and makes the first correction where, Harvey Lillard gets his hearing back. And then turns it over to his son, who then did a magnificent job developing the philosophy, the art, the science of it. So the animals are very, very attuned to truth. They're aware of truth. They're aware of your clear intent. And if you're clear on the principle of chiropractic that energy, information flows from above down, inside out, and you know the truth of that, the animal can sense that. And that's the only way I can describe it. And it's a very, very beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful thing, and it's beautiful with people, and it's beautiful with all the different animals we just talked about. What I think is amazing, you talked about the anatomy of it, and you talked about above, down, inside out. The brain communicates with the body over the spinal cord to every cell, tissue, and organ of the body. In every species, there is no species that has a brain that doesn't have that as the central communication mechanism to the body. It's the
Yeah.
central computer that communicates to the whole body, and it has to do so over the spinal cord to the nervous system. And, we had somebody here earlier today, and it was like, okay, well, how is this going to affect my hormones? And I don't really always know the answer to that question, but the body knows. The body
Yes.
knows what to do as long as you get rid of the interference. And we have a lot of these young kids that we see, as an example, and they're playing sports. And you don't even realize how many collisions a day a young athlete from the age of 7, 8, 9, even earlier, learning to walk, but in the sports world of these youth sports, and they're constantly getting collisions that are interfering ultimately with the way the brain and the body talk. It affects proprioception, it affects balance, it affects hormonal. And then when you do it in the animals, you don't have to explain all of that. You just walk up and you go to the spine and you find out where the interference is. How do you know in an animal? Do you ask where it hurts? Do you ask them to tell you, like, how do you know where it is?
Well, yeah, a lot of the animals come from veterinarians or an owner who knows, hey, it's the right hip, it's the left front leg, the breathing is off, the coordination is off for whatever. Like, for example, dogs that are doing agility, and the dog ran into what they call an A-frame and whacked its head on the A-frame and flexed its skull. So, the owners are very attuned to their animals and descriptive about what's going on. And the rest is my skill, and that, just took years to develop and learn. And one, understanding the principle that I was going to make a correction, that the intelligence inherent within that's coordinating all function was going to do its job. I never questioned that. It just makes so much sense to me. The fact that somebody would rebel against that or couldn't understand it, I realized nobody taught them that. Nobody shared that wisdom with them. So the animal understands it. They also understand your intent. This is a hard concept, but my intent is to help. It's nice to make money. It's a wonderful living, but that is way out of my brain when I'm working with a horse. I'm not thinking that way. I'm thinking about the fact that the horse or the dog or the cat or the bird is suffering. And I'm going to go ahead and do something to reduce suffering. And as I'm not too sure where I read it, but nothing is beneath our dignity to do to reduce suffering. And in chiropractic, the not only it's life giving, that it creates a beautiful life, but in so many ways it reduces suffering for animals. And that I've watched many, many thousands of times.
Yeah, it's we don't do a lot of animals. We refer to somebody close to us that does it all the time. But we did have uh, a couple of months ago. We had a woman who has a 240 pound. I forget the kind of dog it was. Really, really big dog. And Corey had my son had adjusted this dog a couple of times, and Corey was out of town, and this dog needed to get adjusted, and the mom brought not into the office. I actually went inside her van because this dog was huge and it was not able to walk. And I'll never forget when, because you talk about intention, when I she opened the door and this dog had not seen me before. He had no idea what was going
I,
to happen, and neither did I, quite honestly. And he looks up at me as if, am I going to eat you or am I going to let you in the back of this van? And I said, hey, buddy, I'm your friend and I'm here to help you. I'm going to check you. I'm going to check your spine and your nerves. And I had, I obviously I must have had pretty decent energy because he didn't, number one, he didn't eat me. And number two, he let me do my job. And it's amazing the difference that it made. And so the energy is really, really important. And you see in the world, in the treatment world, the allopathic treatment world, a lot of times where it's so busy with sickness and you know that the people get on edge and nervous and stressed. There's so much stress in the environment and protocols that are not necessarily right for the person. It's protocols over people. It kind of drives me crazy, and I think that's so much different than what we do and what a lot of us do in our industry. A lot of our 100-year lifestyle affiliated chiropractors, I know because we work with them, we train them, but it's really a matter of working with the person, not the protocol. Talk about that from an animal perspective, because they go into a vet and it's all right, let's put them on an IV and let's do this, that, and the other thing, whether they need it or not.
Well, again, just briefly to go back to the outside in, below up, a doctor, when you think about it, has this risk reward. I'm going to go ahead and put a drug in where there's a good chance of side effect or some kind of reaction. And in chiropractic, we see this immediate positive result of making a correction and ease in the system, normalize breath. And humans were able to calibrate all of that in our post checks. And in horses and dogs and cats, we're able to do it through a physical means of examination. So um, the you have to restate your question one more time. I'm trying to. Um, sorry, someone's at the door there. I'm going to let it go. Um, I the animal knows. I make the correction, and there's an immediate response. And we've mentioned this before that they don't understand placebo. They don't understand. You're going to make it's either works or it doesn't work. And um, the the tone of the animal changes. This is something in chiropractic we're aware of, that the central nervous system, when it's been cleared, a normal tone comes over the body. And that is the very first thing I notice, in particular with horses, where a horse's nervous system can be quite jangled as a result of a subluxation. And as soon as we make a correction, normally it can be anywhere in the spine, but primarily up in the cervical spine, that the immediate change of that is, and it is, it's like instantaneous. So
Yeah,
that
it's interesting too because we see it obviously in people, and you talk about tone, which we've talked about before. There's an ease that comes over, and a lot of times the ease will come over a person and their body and an animal. The ease comes over that person, even though the symptoms don't go away right away all the time, but you can tell that the body's doing its job because of the ease. People will say to us all the time, they'll say, "Well, I don't, I can't explain it. I just feel different. I feel better."
Uh, Right, right. I've told the story of the iguana that I adjusted where the color had gone out of the low back of had lost its function of
Wow.
its legs, bladder. We made a correction, and the color, that shimmering green, came back in an instant. Although the legs and the bowel didn't correct for a couple of days, but when I saw the color come back, I realized, oh, the power's on. There's energy in the system. Just wait. you have to be patient. I joke when people would ask, "How long is it going to take?" And I said, "Well, it takes 9 months to make a 6 pound baby. How long? How much do you weigh? It takes time for tissues to regenerate and replenish and slough off the dead cells and rebuild new cells. And that's an educational process for the chiropractor. That's why giving talks are so essential, and to your people that they grasp that there's a rhyme and reason to what we do in chiropractic. It is very, very disciplined in its philosophy, its delivery, its science. It's there, there's quite a discipline there for those who practice chiropractic.
Yeah,
And
and it's interesting too because the more you do it, the more it looks just too simple. It really does. I tell people that like if they come in and they haven't been in ever or they haven't been to a chiropractor ever, and I'll let them know. I say, I promise you, this is not as simple as I make it look.
uh-huh.
And there's a lot that goes into it. And I'm curious. I just had a thought. Did you ever? What's the scariest animal chiropractic situation that you were ever in?
Oh, well, horses can be very, very dangerous. That there are times where I used to work with a veterinarian where his claim to fame was taking what we call a rank horse, a really nasty horse, and then restarting them. And I worked with two trainers who were like that too. So the horses, cats, cats can be very, very menacing if you get a really nasty cat, and they'll get a hold of you and do quite a bit of damage. I was called in once to take care of a cat that had put both the veterinarian and the vet tech in the hospital. And they called me in to take care of it. I threw a blanket over the cat and I had to adjust the cat through the blanket, and I tractioned the occiput, released the upper cervicals, equilibrium came back into the system, and the cat never hurt anybody ever again. And all from being subluxated. Now, you think of a cat that wants to do damage like that, who's just nasty, or a horse, or a dog, all because their nervous system is jacked up and is not functioning normally. And we see that in humans with relationships, right? Just the rage that we see on the highways, the rage of people doing damage. And you have to assume that something is way haywire with their central nervous system.
Yeah, it's
I,
interesting
I
because do they want to do damage or do they are they just trying to protect themselves?
yes, well that's many with horses in particular, where they've lost trust of someone's hurt them or done damage to them, and they want safety. All of us want safety, and that's the beauty of a nervous system that's tranquil, is it doesn't have these extremes. It's a state of equilibrium. And it should run away from something that's bad, and it should then settle so it can rest and digest. And that interplay should go back and forth, but you just don't want it stuck at one end of the spectrum. The beauty of chiropractic is in an instant you correct that you
Yeah,
correct that.
and you could see that you can see those changes right away. And so, talk about what is an analysis like? If you were going to go, if somebody is listening to this and they say, you know what, I really need to get my animal checked. I'm tired of trying to give them these pills. I'm looking for an alternative. I'm wondering if there's a holistic way to help my animal. How should they find an animal chiropractor, and what should they look for during the process? What should they expect from the process?
Right. So first off is I encourage the chiropractors to work with the veterinarian to find out what the veterinarian found out, and do a really good case history and work up that way. That's really important that you learn to collaborate, even though our philosophies are different. What they do is very essential and important. After that, the rest lies in the chiropractor's ability to do an assessment, which is gait, gait analysis, motion, the movement or the lack of movement in the spine. Then what we call tonal assessment, that is when the engine is revving in a horse where there's a pinched nerve or spinal cord that's irritated, those tissues tend to be very hyper. And clinically we say there's sympathetic tone where it's got this rev to it. And so that the respiratory rate, we can do heat readings on horses. It's not quite as accurate due to hair, although they have infrared readings that are pretty good that we can pre and post check correction to the neck. So there's quite a few things. We don't do MRIs due to the cost or the shipping cost. X-rays only if there's been a really bad trauma, and that I'll call out a vet that we would do an X-ray. But it's all of those things are important. So we're the case history, the chiropractor's ability to assess all these characteristics of distortion, and then the big part is being able to deliver a corrective adjustment,
Right.
which is
So what kind of questions might a parent or a pet owner ask a chiropractor or to figure out if it's a good fit?
well. Um, that's a wonderful question. The first thing is that one, has that chiropractor worked on that size dog or that cat or a bird or whatever animal? Have they done that? And being familiar, for example, the anatomy of a horse is, they're quadrupeds, so there's the lines and angles. It's really important that they are going to someone who has had some level of education around the anatomy and physiology as well as the correction. So that's really, really important. The rest is how many have they done? I've done several thousands of horses, so are they experienced? Um,
We got the guru here, everybody. We go right to the top. We got the guru of this
uh,
field here telling you how to find the
uh,
right chiropractic doctor for your animal. So this is
yeah,
good advice.
it's important that they're certified, that they've gone through some training. Then there's a lot of safety issues with the horse. I'm teaching at Sherman Chiropractic College, and in a couple of weeks we have a big animal program where they're taking an elective to come watch, and the first hour will be on safety, just not getting hurt. You can be hurt and ruin your career. So as a chiropractor, that you don't take that lightly, especially with horses. A dog can be very menacing and bite, and so all the safety is very, very important. Experience. And then the rest is relying on our principal in the delivery of a corrective spinal adjustment.
So the person, the consumer needs to ask about their experience making the types of corrections that you're talking about, because we're talking to
Yep.
the public mostly. A lot of chiropractors are going to hear this, but we really want the world to know and people to know that these principles that we're talking about today are just as good and effective for the horses and the dogs, etc., as they are for the people. And listen, we got in my area here, there's probably within maybe a 3 mile radius, at least a dozen veterinary clinics, at least. But you
Yes.
can't, but it's hard to find, it's harder to find a holistic, a chiropractor who can do what you're talking about. So is there a central place where people, how
Yes.
would, I mean, I guess you could do Google searches and find out who's near you. What else would you look
Yeah.
for? That you mentioned a certification. What kind of certifications would you look for
Okay. Well, first,
as a consumer, as a
yes.
consumer?
As first off, in your area, you have Pam McCoy. Dr. McCoy's wife is certified and very, very good at what she does. There are some other chiropractors, but I would start with her. But the consumer needs to know that the chiropractor goes through an educational process to get a 210-hour certification, and that's kind of that's icing on the cake where you've got that, and then that person goes and gets tested out with the American Veterinary Chiropractic Association or the International Veterinary Chiropractic Association, and then they've been certified. Why that's important is that the veterinarians want to know, were you schooled in issues of zoonotics? That is, does it belong in a chiropractor's office? And it's a wonderful question to ask. The chiropractor would know that. The veterinarian doesn't know that, but if the person takes the animal to the chiropractor first, gets it checked, which is really important, but would the chiropractor know, oh, this has got an infection, which may respond to chiropractic? Well, when is it necessary to refer back so that there's this relationship going back and forth? So the educational process is really, really key to
And
the vet.
you want to find somebody that is willing to work with your vet.
Yes, yeah, you've got to have that. The vets, well, it happened at Life University. I was doing a talk there. We had to hire a veterinarian to watch me. We were doing a 3-hour program. This was when Dr. Reekman had hired me to come in, did a 3 hour program on dogs and horses. And we had to have a vet because of the state, your state rule and regulation. And at the end of the 3 hours, his father and him had 5 clinics around the perimeter of Atlanta. And I was living in Colorado, asked me, would you want to come to work for us? Now, so I I'm in Colorado. I can't do it. I couldn't find anybody to do it. But he watched for 3 hours, but he got the message. He watched the horses and dogs. But we did the educational process on what happens when the spine torques or twists, puts pressure on the spinal cord, puts pressure on the spinal nerve. There's no pill or drug that's going to change that. Only one thing does it. That's a corrective adjustment. He got that. They offered me a job to rotate through 5 clinics. You have an instant, as a business proposition, you have instant revenue. They pay you on the spot. The person's paying cash. They're not handing them an insurance card. And so I encourage a lot of the students to get your certification, open up your office, but you're able to go right to work doing dogs and horses, working for veterinarians, and it's easier to build the people portion by taking care of animals than it is the other way around. That if you start off with people trying to promote, it's challenging. But when people have got an animal that's suffering, they want they want care, and chiropractic is a natural.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, you know what's great? Because you've been doing this for how long?
49 years.
49 years. You got me by
Yes.
8 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
really. Well, we're two old dogs.
well, I don't feel like an old dog. I feel like a kid in a candy store,
Me,
honestly. It's what a
me too.
blessing to be able to do this. And so between us, we have 89 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And,
Yeah.
I feel like we're just getting started or just warming up and bringing this wisdom to the world at a time where, I remember way back, a lot of people who are listening to this, maybe you had some crazy cockamamie thought process of what people like Dr. J and I do as chiropractors. And, we're seeing more and more that all of the lies that we're told about who we were and what we've done have been revealed for decades already. And our grassroots movement, because I think that's why what the chiropractic is just booming more than ever today. And every family has a chiropractor. Anybody who's any athlete, every athlete has a chiropractor. Every mom, dad, kid, family, whatever, has a chiropractor today. And if they don't, they're going to have one because it's just a natural fit for the world as the allopathic world has lost so much respect because none of the cures ever worked out and more sickness than ever. And here we are just continuing this grassroots movement out in the world. And so, how excited are you after all of that and all the ups and downs and everything that the world has finally opened up to the reality of what we're doing and embracing it with flying colors?
Yeah, they're starving for what we have. They just didn't know it. They didn't know it until you tell them that, what you're looking for is inside you. Through this correction, the chiropractic correction, and that when they experience it, so they have the experience of a correction, and then feel something that's very hard to describe. I mean, they're describing something. It's what's the word? Ephemeral. That there's no way for them to put into words this mental, emotional, spiritual, physiologic thing that happens. So they're searching on words that it's hard. So they're starving for what we have, and our job is to make it, when we speak and when we teach, to drive the point home in such a way that they get it. And that coupled with the adjustment, that they have to have the experience of a correction. And it's a one, I did a class the other day, and there were a bunch of students there, and we're talking about DE, dynamic essential, and we're also talking about animals. And there were two clubs that got together and said, "Can you come talk to both of us?" So it was perfect. We're talking about the dynamic essential, the life within, and I'm talking about animal care. And I was thrilled. I was thrilled, and the questions were good, and there were a couple other professors there that I can see, the excitement in their eyes, that I'm the first one here in the morning at the school. I'm here usually at 6:30 in the morning. Nobody's here. And I'm in my office getting my mind on the fact that now it's centered on education and the love of the principal and teaching kids who are just getting started to get them, the chiropractors who are in school, to get them on the right road. Somebody they just need to learn the principle. And unfortunately, in many of schools, it's not taught um, deeply. So
Well, we're teaching it, you're teaching it, and we
yeah,
just got to
yeah.
keep on going. We just got to keep on going and keep doing our thing. And when it comes to longevity, the 100-year lifestyle is about expressing your full potential for a lifetime. It's about living at 100% through every phase of life for 100 years and beyond. And obviously, you need to have a healthy nervous system in order to make that happen. And we see it in people, and I know you see it in animals. I'd like you to talk about it for as we start to wind down here. That how does the expression of this intelligence, this neurology, without interference in animals, affect their quality of life as they get older, just like in humans?
Well, that I have. Well, I have my own experience with my own animals. Who I had dogs that normally lived to 12 or 13. I had Shar-Pei lived to 17. German Shorthair lived to 17. I had a wolf. I'm sorry, a husky lived to 18 and a half. Cat lived to 21. So that was my own experience by keeping their nervous system clear. So, and then patients, animals who, horses go living to 28, 30, 32,
Wow.
33, just as a result of getting correction and keeping the nervous
And more
system.
quality, not just living that, but
And the
quality of
quality.
life.
I always describe it like this, that you have a beautiful picture window in your home that looks out at a mountain. And in Colorado, that's what I had. And you're looking at this beautiful environment, and that's what you should see. But if somebody comes along and puts greasy handprints on the window, and that's the subluxation on the nervous system, for the rest of your life, you're going to look out at that window at those greasy handprints, and it becomes part of your horizon. You just think, oh, this is normal to look at
Blur.
this imprint, and that people don't realize what it means until they're adjusted and they realize, oh, this is what freedom feels like. This is what a normal breath
Yeah,
feels like. This is the normal mood of a healthy person. It's not just the chemistry and the neurology and the cellular function, but it's the fact that their behavior changes so dramatically. And we see that in the horse, and obviously it happens in people as well.
love it. Well, I'm excited to get more animals under care and to take care of those families. Because listen, I mean, it breaks our heart when our animals are not healthy, and our world stops when that happens, and when they are chronically ill or chronically sick and chronically need care. I mean, that's heartbreaking. And so, what you're doing is so important, educating more and more of our people to reach out to all the people to help their families be better and their animals be healthier. And so, give
Yeah.
us a closing thought, speaking to our public audience today. Give a
Uh,
closing thought to them about some wisdom, so some Jay Komarek wisdom.
what I encourage you to do, if there's any level of suffering for you or your family or close friend, that you get them to a chiropractor. And that, you're doing what's conservative first. You can always move to what's radical, but that you're doing something that is sound in principle and philosophy and its art and its science. And you're doing a good deed by, sending someone to a chiropractor who may be suffering. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, uh, it's a wonderful art and science, and I can't state strongly enough how important it is that you have your nervous system checked.
Yeah, so important. And thank you for that. And, we see so many people where they did not do what you're saying first and they went there after the fact.
Yeah,
And so many of them say, wow, I wish I would have not cut myself open that way or had that screw put in or whatever it is. And
yeah,
so it is always better to go conservative first. And you're doing great work. Your resiliency,
yeah.
just your commitment to humanity and animals and just health in general and the truth about health. It's fantastic. So I'm grateful for you, all of that wisdom. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
This is our second time. We'll do it again sometime soon because I'm
Yes,
having a
sir.
lot of fun. All
I
right.
appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. Big hugs to you. Have a great day. And thank you for being here, everybody. Listen, enjoy a sensational century. If you knew you'd live to 100, how would you change your life today so that you can get there in style with health and vitality? And if you knew your animal was going to live to 100, how would you take care of them so they function at their highest level for the most health for them and joy for you and your family for a lifetime? So until next time, Dr. Eric Plasker with Dr. J. Komarek signing off.